Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Garage Gym Athlete Podcast. Jerred Moon here with Joe Courtney. Once again, so glad to have you back. It's a lot of pressure by myself, man. It's like,
Quick turnaround. Yeah, I think you
you,
just got lonely.
yeah, you take some of the pressure off, and I just be like, hey, I can't handle this. I need some help. But I'm glad. I'm really happy to be diving into this stuff. So let's talk about what's going on in today's episode. We're going to kind of do some updates again, just like what's going on. I want to talk about some training of my kids and some ideas behind what I've been doing there. I'll kind of update everybody with that stuff. We're going to be talking about some upcoming books that we want to read from people that I have previously interviewed on the podcast or talked to, and like they have really awesome content, so we're not getting like paid to push their new books or whatever, nothing like that. We're going to read some of these and we want to throw it out on the radar. I'm going to talk about some of the protocols I've been following lately just to become a better human, be fitter, all those kind of things. I want to give that to the community so you can maybe try tackling some of those things as well. And then we're going to be talking about a book briefly called Real Food, Fake Food that Joe read recently. I have not made my way all the way through it. Been reading a lot of stuff, but haven't finished that one. But I want to ask Joe some of his big takeaways from that one. So that's what we will be diving into today. Let's start with updates, man. What's going on in your life? Training? Are you better? Is your heel better? Is like your shoulder good? Like all the things that seem to be falling apart
Shoulder
over the
have
last
actually been
year.
really good. Like I
Yeah.
don't think I've had much of anything, and I don't know if it's because I haven't been pushing it as hard, but I just shoulder actually feels really healthy. I don't know. I've started doing a lot more. My warm ups have been a little bit more deliberate. I've been doing certain banded stuff for my upper body warm up, and then lower body. I always do like a specific glute and like the outer glutes warm up, so that because I was starting to have a little bit of a groin or a hip flexor pain when I was doing some lower body stuff, but I've been doing those, and yeah, everything feels fairly buttery smooth for how well I can feel. That is for even though my mobility isn't the best. I think I ran like the day after we talked last, and I mentioned my heel, and even though I'm getting another PRP injection in just like 2 more weeks, I it's still not my heel spur doesn't feel that bad afterwards. So more normally like 6 months ago, whenever I would run, I would be like limping around a day or two afterwards if I ran because my heel just hurt so much, or like I could like even put my foot up on a cushion. The pressure of that would still hurt some. So, but now it's pretty much fine. So I'm just getting the PRP just as another like double up. Let's get even better because I need to really start running more, and I'll be kind of adjusting my programming to run more because of the mile and a half test I have coming. And I just last 6 8 weeks I've been dialing it back because of my heel, but it's good enough that when I can run, I'm not limping about it. So I'm kind of all systems go at this point. So it doesn't really affect me, which is great.
Yeah, and I think the biggest takeaway I hear when I've heard you talk about injuries or whatever is the fact that you're still doing something. A lot of people use that as an excuse to just go like shut down and like not train anymore. So I think that's good on you to just even continue training through limitation, just working around it. I think more people need that
Pivot.
attitude and behavior.
You get creative with some stuff. I had all kinds of things in the past, and when I first did PT back in like 2017, my back was really, really bad. I remember, and like when my low back and my hips were really bad, there was a lot that I couldn't do. But I just got a bit creative with what I could do, and I know even long time ago I had a hernia surgery, and like the amount of use for your abs
Yeah,
is
yeah.
killer. So like you have to like really isolate certain things that you can do, and yeah, just zigging when you need to zag or whatever. You just gotta be flexible, and that's why I always have a cycle where like, okay, I'm just gonna focus on this. It's not like every cycle I'm not always trying to get super strong and super fit and all these things. Sometimes I'm just like, hey, I'm just gonna focus on this one area, and that's gonna be my primary thing that I work through, and then I'll just sprinkle in some other stuff to keep balanced after that. Keep it
That's
simple.
awesome, man. Well, I'm doing well. I'm not hurt. But what I wanted to update everybody on was this is my new favorite workout to do with my kids. So doing death by 10 meter, either at your house or on a field. So if you don't know the workout, you it's like an EMOM every minute on the minute. The first minute you run 10 meters and then you rest the remainder of the time. And then the next minute you add 10 meters every minute. So the next one would be 10 10. And it's like a shuttle run, right? It's down 10, back 10. So you only need 10 meters to be able to do this. And then you just go until either you quit or can no longer fit it in the minute. And the reason I really like doing this with my kids is because it's a way to get them running and do some serious conditioning, that can increase their VO2 max and make them fitter without saying, "Hey, let's go run 2 miles or run 1 mile." Because if your kid is pretty fit, they can fit nearly a mile in this depending on how far they go. So Graham, my middle child, he did 16 minutes, before he was like, "I'm good." It was more of like he's like, I'm tapped out." And I think that turns out to being like 1350 meters, something like that. And then I just went one additional just to beat him and show that I'm still the man. And I did 17, but it was pretty difficult for me. And so that is my new favorite workout. I highly recommend you getting your kids into doing that, because it's like I said, it's just a sneaky way to add some conditioning if your kids want to do conditioning. My kids are really big into fitness and sports and everything, so they're really happy to do those things, especially if I do it with them. So that is my new favorite, like conditioning modality with my kids that I want to throw out there for other people who might be interested in doing something similar.
Yeah, that is a you can do that as Air Force PT test now. The um
Basically, the beep test, is that right?
yeah, basically, yeah.
Yeah,
And I really want to do it because I'm pretty sure I could smash it just being an athlete and like you have the recovery, even though you only recover in the beginning. But I feel like I could totally smash it. I'm trying to find what the actual stats are to see what like where I would be or what how many you can even um what the score would be, but I can't find where the charts are. But I think that would be a lot of fun to do. But it's not one of the things where I want to show up and be like, "Hey, let's do this shuttle test for the very first time," and then like you
yeah.
just like completely like whiff on something or some sort of technicality. Um, this is Hammer shuttles. They're like giving really big numbers, but I guess it would be.
Yeah,
I
my
have to
my
see what
buddy's
the.
still active duty. He texted me about it, and I forgot what the distance was, but he said it's pretty difficult. He's pretty good shape. Like, it's not easy to max out. It's he's like, there's like a big gap between like doing well and maxing it out. I mean, just like
Mm,
the mile and a half run. It's
yeah,
like doing getting a 90 or like whatever, not too hard, but like the max out time is like, okay, you got to run a 6 minute mile for a mile and a half or something crazy. So anyway,
it's a
I think it's
hundred.
something similar there. But let's jump
Oh yeah.
into some of the books that are coming up, man. You mentioned Alex Hutchinson has a new book. It's coming out or has come out, right? It's like,
Comes out in 3 weeks.
yeah. So Alex Hutchinson. The reason I want to give a shout out here is because um, I've talked to Alex. He wrote the book Endure, and it's amazing. And I think it's very hard to make any kind of book about this category: health, fitness, strength, conditioning, interesting. And I'm not saying that all the books out there aren't interesting, but to have an actual like good book that's not just like a step down from a textbook, I think is tough. And so he's a writer full time. Last I checked, he writes for Outside Online, and um, he wrote that book Endure, which is really good. It's like one of my top books. The 4 Minute Mile, that one is the other like phenomenally written like fitness book, if you will. So very hard to do those things. So that's why I'm really jazzed up for his next book. And you have the title pulled up, like what it's called?
It's called the Explorer's Gene. I had the let's see.
It's like why we want to do hard things, explore uncharted
Why we
white space
seek
on the
big
map.
challenges, new flavors, and the blank spots on a map.
Yeah, so I think that one will be really interesting. Just throwing this on people's radar. And then another person who I interviewed, coming out with no, it already came out, right? Brad Stolberg's new book, Win the Inside Game. Is that right?
Stieg Magnus. So
Oh,
he helped
his
with
co-author,
Peak
right?
Performance. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Win the Inside Game is already out.
Yeah, and then you said that's about getting kids to play outside. Is that right?
So the subtitle is How to Move from Striving to Thriving and Free Yourself Up to Perform. And I saw the reason why this came about is because I saw a social media post and it went on and on about how kids not only kids need to play like play outside, free form play, and but also like adults still need some sort of play, like playing outside and not just like
Mhm.
playing inside and freeing from technology and doing. It's more than just activity. It's like the social part of it, the problem solving it, the there's even like a risk when playing certain games. Like I definitely I feel like I always get hurt whenever I play some sort of sport, but it's always a whole lot of fun.
Yeah. That's the thing is like, yesterday so I did that conditioning workout with my kids yesterday at the track, but we go to the track sometimes when we have free time. We call it the track. It's like a football field in It's a track, but we just will bring a bunch of balls and like cones and like do different things. And they always want me to do whatever. And I try and do as much as I can. Like they want me to do whatever they're doing. And then they were like, let's run 40s and time it. And I was like, how about on this one, I time you guys just because I haven't sprinted in a while. And I was like, I'm not going to pull a hamstring. So you kind of have to know, like, I don't want to be limited in that way. Like, I'll probably run the next one with them, but I'm like, I'm not running a 40 cold right now. And I'm not going to make you guys wait 15 minutes while I warm up for it, you know? So anyway, there are certain levels of like activity, but I was the goalie yesterday for Graham's like shots. I was like jumping on the ground, doing all this kind of stuff. We were playing football. I was like being the safety that had to block passes between the two of them. So it's just a lot of fun. Like you said, being able to play some of those sports and stuff. So really enjoy it.
And whenever you do something like that, I feel like, at least for me, I know certain things like my groin or certain things are way sore than they normally are. I feel because you don't run laterally. When you go out for a
Yeah.
run, you're doing intervals. You're not running laterally or sideways or anything. It's always like, oh man, I know it's been a while.
Yeah, that's why you gotta stay up to date on those things and like just do them frequently. That's the only real way to avoid getting sore from them. Cool, man. Well, let's jump into some of these protocols. I have two different protocols I wanted to hit on that I've been following like religiously over the last couple of months, and I wanted to talk to people about it. So I have two of them, and Joe, feel free to chime in with any questions. But like, I talked about on the podcast a long time ago. I was wearing blood glucose monitor, like checking my checking my blood sugar because my A1C had climbed up, which was like super surprising. And it all happened when like I wasn't doing as much strength training. I was running, probably eating too many carbohydrates. My body didn't do well with that. So I put on CGM, continuous glucose monitor, to try and bring the A1C down. And like I wanted to see what was going on with different things that I ate. So I learned a lot in that process of about 4 to 6 months or whatever it was wearing the CGM. But I needed something sustainable, like long term. Like that's how my brain works. I need a system, a framework, something I could put into a habit. And so, what I developed several months ago, and I've been trying to stick to the best of my ability, is what I call 350 micro. 350 micro. So, what it is, you get 3 meals per day. That's it. No snacks, nothing else. You get 3 meals a day. And the reason the 3 meals a day is important, and I know it sounds like whatever, but like most people are eating 3, 4, 6 meals, and then like what, like if you include the snacks, like people are eating a lot throughout the day. I don't think that's good. It's not good for me for my blood sugar. So I'm trying to really limit myself on 3 meals. So it's like, here's breakfast. You better be full because you don't eat again until the next meal. I'm very strict about it. And that's helped a lot with regulating my blood sugar. Second thing, 50. So it's 350 micro, 50 minimum 50 grams of protein per meal. So that means I'm going to get, if I follow that, I'm going to get at least 150 grams of protein if I'm eating 3 meals. Now, this is where this will play out differently per individual, right? Like you might only need, a smaller female, maybe 30, 40 grams of protein per meal if you want to follow this 350 micro. Maybe a bigger dude, you have other goals and you're like, I got to get 60, or 70 or whatever. Like you can play around with those. There's a certain threshold I would probably go with protein in a single meal, just from the actual consumption of it would be hard. Not because I'm going to say your body can't use it or whatever. I don't think the science is ultimately super clear on that. But um, I'm trying to hit at least 50 grams of protein every single meal. That's another thing. It's like you're super satiated when you hit that much protein in a meal, and it's going to help with your blood sugar if you're having carbohydrates with protein. That really helps balance your blood sugar. And then the last part of that is micro. And so that is making sure that you have micronutrients in your meal. And typically, most micronutrients are going to come from fruits or vegetables. Meat has micronutrients, but most of its micronutrients, when people think about them, are fruits or vegetables, like all the vitamins and minerals that can be in food. So that means I'm thinking when I go into a meal, and the reason I say go into a meal is because I'm not following a meal plan. I'm not trying to eat the same exact thing every day. While a lot of things do repeat, if I just show up in my kitchen for lunch and I'm like 350 micro, like this is my second meal of the day, I need 50 grams of protein. I'll grab those things first that would get me there. And then I'm like, okay, where are the micronutrients? And so I'm either adding some fruits or vegetables to the meal, and now I got the micro box checked. So that's a protocol I've been following for a while. And to be honest, when I do it really well, I feel really good. Like a lot of energy left over at the end of the day. Very on point. Like mentally. Like it's just been a really good and very simple framework for me to follow with my diet over the last couple months.
Yeah, I definitely struggle with 3 meals. I'm somewhat of a snacker, and it's the breakfast to lunch meal is always hard for me to like pin down to actually have like structured 2 meals there, and that's why I counted some recently because I'm pretty sure I was under eating in those meals, and like during the day I wouldn't feel that hungry. I would even if I would have one meal, but then I'd have dinner, and then 30-40 minutes after dinner I'm hungry, and I'm like, well, it's an hour before bed, but I can't have like a bigger snack or a second dinner. So I needed to balance out earlier in the day. It's just timing wise is weird because normally I finish my workout at about 9:30, 10 o'clock. I have a protein shake, and so I don't want to eat a bunch before that. I'll usually only have a bar first thing in the morning at like 7. But then afterwards, I have a protein shake, and it's like, okay, well, by the time this protein shake processes, I'm pretty much at lunch already. And so all I've had is a bar and a shake before lunch, and then I have to make up. Okay, maybe I'll just have a big lunch, but then if I have a lunch at noon, we don't eat dinner till 5, and that's like a big gap. So I balancing that is like I still don't think I could do 3 meals, but I do. I definitely notice that when I do count macros, like actually, if I like need to weigh and count, was always when I had the best balance of meals because I had to sit there and count. I couldn't just go in and grab a snack because I'd be like, oh well, all right, let's break out the scale, and if I'm going to break out the scale, I might as well make this whole thing worth it to consciously make the meal. So it in a way it's like harder having the freedom that I can just eat anytime I want, whenever I want, because I'm home all the time. But having the structure, I know definitely helps a lot. And then like right now we're in between traveling, so like it's not like I can stock the fridge up because I don't want to have a bunch of food in the fridge when we go out of town.
Yeah, and that's I'd say for anyone else listening who kind of feels like they're in a similar situation, if you are going to go more than 3 meals and you are going to snack, just try to make the snacks protein if you can. Like I've gotten a lot of just like those meat sticks. I've been trying out different companies and stuff, but I've been throwing that in because like you, if I'm gonna like I'm at home, and so if I go snack, it's always easy to find carbohydrates for a snack. Super
Hmm.
easy. Just have a bunch of carbs, and that's gonna make me feel worse over time, and not what I want. So I'm like, okay, if I could grab 2 of these meat sticks and an apple, if I'm more in like the snacking category, like because I'm not perfect on the 350 micro, but when I am, I feel really good. But if I'm like, yeah, schedule's crazy, whatever, screwed up, I just need to eat something real quick. I might have, yeah, 2 meat sticks and an apple and like a scoop of peanut butter, something like that. That's the whole like snack, and it's more satiating than whatever grabbing some kid snack because I'm in a hurry, because they have all their snacks that I could just grab. So that's something. But like I do think if you can work it in and figure it out, it's really helped. And like I said, I'm not perfect every day, but it's really been helping me. And some people might be like, well, what about the fats and the carbs? And it's like, I've never really cared about those things as much. I feel like those things just kind of even themselves out. If you're like, okay, I'm going to have 50 grams of protein in this meal, and I'm going to make sure I have some micronutrients that come from carbohydrates, you're probably good. Like like either the protein source that you selected might have fat in it already, whether that's some sort of meat or if it's like yogurt or like whatever, like it's going to end up having some fat in there anyway. And then most of your carbohydrates will come from whatever fruit or vegetable you selected. So it tends to work itself out. But if you are in like a really tight situation with macronutrients, maybe track for a while. But this has been working for me without having to track anything because it's easy to just be like, what's 50 grams of protein? And then basically that's half the meal plan right there, if not more.
Yeah, that's kind of why I like the macro tracking app that I was using because the main thing that it only shows you are protein and calories, and then it's just logging from there. And I feel like I like fat and carbs could kind of go can sway anytime I count them from either like 20% of this to 40% of this. And so if those things are kind of moving, that's kind of just the energy. I feel like I'm good enough to eat balanced enough. I just want to care about the protein and then the calories and making sure I'm getting enough to replenish.
Now, the second protocol I've been following, I want to talk about. I've been doing this for years. I mean, it's over a decade. Some version of what I'm talking about. I have this like infographic I found the other day that I created in like I think it was 2013, and it was like how
Can I
to
guess?
earn points and how to lose points in a day, and it was like a hard workout would actually like take you down a couple points. And so to counteract that hard workout, you'd have to have like nutrition or sleep, right? It's like that balance of like stress and recovery, right? I've been focused on that for a lot of time. We've had the recovery game in the app, like where you can like log your recovery points and stuff, and it's always worth tracking this to some degree. And so I've always been thinking this way, but I've been tracking it um, almost every day for several months now. And what I do is I have a category in like this note that I use on a daily basis. It's like a templated note I use. And there's a hormesis category and then there's a recovery category. Okay. So that's trying to put it in simple frameworks again to where I'm not having to think about too much. And so in the hormesis, if you don't know what hormesis is, I talk about it in my book, Killing Comfort. And it's just the idea of what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. That's kind of the idea of hormesis. It's small little stressors that stress your body out in the acute short term, but long term make you better and healthier. Fitness is one of those. Like if you look at all of the parameters around working out, if all we did was look at like what's actually happening in your body, fitness might seem like a bad thing. We're ripping your muscles apart. We're elevating your heart rate to like a high level, inflammation, like all these bad things happen from exercise in a small acute sense, but long term, your body adapts, gets better, gets stronger, and we all know exercise is very good for you. So that's hormesis. And then recovery is all the typical things you would think you need for recovery. And I'll go over those as well, but something like sleep is like a big one, right? Like making sure you sleep enough time. So here's how I look at it. Hormesis, I have this on my checklist every day. I try to hit at least one form of hormesis every single day. And so the big one for me is training, exercise, and then there are four others. Cold exposure, we all know about that. Fasting, sauna, or, and this is kind of a unusual one, plant-based toxins. So I'll go over that one in a second, but um, I'll start there because it's like, what is that? Um, if you, there are certain like compounds you can have, and this isn't like a major one. I just did a lot of research on hormesis, and this is like one that always comes up, like
Grain
garlic.
alcohol.
Yeah,
Just
if
kidding.
you were to cut up a clove of garlic and swallow it, how you're actually supposed to do it is cut up the garlic, smash it, and then wait, I think 10 minutes, and then you can
Because
eat
that
it
has to do
because
with fiber or something, right? I remember reading about
there's
that in one of
some
those
sort of
books.
like um, compound, I forgot what it's called, that it reacts with oxygen, and that's where like all the goodness from garlic comes from. So you have to wait for that. So anyway, if you were to swallow all that garlic, it's going to stress your body out to a certain degree, but it's a good stressor. And there's a lot of like plant based foods like that. That's one form of hormesis, but I try to get at least one, if not two forms of hormesis every single day. So training, exercise, cold exposure, fasting, sauna, plant based toxins. So if today I'm not going to work out, I'm for sure going to try and hit two other forms of hormesis because they're not as powerful as exercise. So if like I got busy and I'm like, oh crap, I'm not going to be able to work out today, I'm going to be like, okay, well, I can do the sauna and cold exposure today. And so I knock out two. So I'm always trying to, even if I don't exercise, focus on whether or not I get hormesis in a day. 9 times out of 10, that's just me exercising. I might throw one other, but I don't want to stress my body out too much. And then the game that I play, how I make this a game, is now every one item of hormesis requires two items of recovery. And the recovery category is sleep. So sleeping 7, 8 hours, hydration, 50% of your body weight in ounces, nutrition, be kind of what we're talking about with 350 micro, getting at least two of those in those kind of meals in a day. Additional aerobic, so like blood flow, getting 10,000, 15,000 steps, doing additional aerobic exercises, getting sun or vitamin D, or breath work. So those are 6 different categories for recovery. So just to put that in perspective, it's like, okay, I trained today. That's one form of hormesis. I need two forms of recovery. So I'm going to make sure I sleep 7 hours and I'm going to make sure I'm well hydrated at a minimum, right? At a minimum. I try to
Mhm.
knock out as many of those as I can in a day. But if I do, say I do two, because like right now I'm fasting, I'm currently fasting as we're speaking, I will also train later today. So that's going to be two forms of hormesis. I need four ways to recover. So I'm going to go for sleep, hydration, nutrition, and I'll probably get some the blood flow, like additional 10,000 plus steps. So I'll have those four in. So that's the game I've been playing, and I've just been tracking it manually in a note of like, okay, you got one hormetic stressor, or you got two, so you need two, or you need four forms of recovery. So that's another protocol I've been following. Very simple, very easy to track. And again, I think it really just helps you stay consistent with the basics of being a better human and living a good life.
That's definitely a great point for on non-training days because not everybody it's hard to train on the weekend, especially with family stuff and sports seasons. And also, I'm sure having ideas like that for people are cool. The plant thing kind of intrigues me. I'd be interested to look up to see what some of the other ones are that you could do for plant toxin, the plant toxin one.
Yeah, it's just I mean, it's the whole thing, like, that's kinda how vegetables are in a lot of ways, is, like, you have to find the right ones, but there are certain vegetables that ultimately stress your body out a little bit, to consume them, but it's good for you, just like exercise over time. It
Spicy
can be good
foods?
for you. I do think yeah, like, I don't know what all to be honest, garlic's, like, the only one I ever truly practice because we have cloves of garlic all the time, and
Hmm.
so it's very easy for me to, like I actually do what I said, I chop them up, I smash them, I wait, and then I just swallow them. I just like they're pills. I just and then I'll take whole clove of garlic, like I don't know, once a week if I'm really like reaching for a form of hormesis, right? Because that's an easy one to knock out. It takes almost no effort. Not something I do every day. If you do it every day, the garlic will come. It will come
I was
out of
gonna
your.
say
It'll come
you're
out of
gonna
your
go into the
pores.
sauna. It's gonna smell
Yeah.
like a kitchen.
I remember a long time ago, I was, like, getting really consistent with that. I was like, "I'll just do it every day if it's that good for you." I did it, like, every day, and then, yeah, like, I just smelled like garlic all the time. I was like, "Where's it? Is it just it's I sweat garlic now?" It's kinda crazy, so be careful with that one.
That's pretty cool.
Alright.
That's I'm sure a lot of people will like those things.
Yeah, I think you could, that's just the mindset of, like, "Okay, I'm not gonna be able to work out today. Can I factor in some form of hormesis today?" And I think if you could think of that, and then also a big thing I think is counteracting that because I think that's where, like, influencer culture has gotten out of control, um, is like, "Okay, I'm gonna train today. I'm gonna do cold exposure. I'm gonna fast. I'm gonna do heat exposure with a sauna, and I'm gonna do plant-based toxins." And it's like, cool. What are you doing to recover from that? It's like, well, I'm gonna sleep. And yeah, it's like, well, you need a lot more than that. Like if you're gonna hit the gas, you always need a break. That's how you have to be balancing these things out. And if you don't, you'll end up digging yourself into a hole. And I feel like that's what a lot of people are unknowingly doing right now with some of these, like trying to have good habits. You think, but all of your habits are just stressors, which is good to a certain degree. But if you tack on all of those hormetic response stressors that I talked about, and then you also have a high stress job and you have kids and you're just a busy schedule, like now you're stacking so many stressors that you might not be able to recover from it even though you think the things that you're doing are good. So it's always something to be mindful of.
Yeah, where do kids fall on hormesis, man?
They are definitely what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. uh,
You
definition.
I award you 0 points. May God have mercy on your soul.
All right, man. Well, let's dive into it with you now. Like real food, fake food. I'm interested to hear your big takeaways from this book. See if you think you recommend it to the Garage Gym Athlete audience.
Yeah, it's been about 6 weeks since I've read it, so I'm fuzzy on some of the details. I do remember it being very eye opening about how about all the information that you get. So, sort of the premise of the book is how it's a mixture of like quality of food and the marketing industry and regulations regarding the foods. So you'll see things labeled a certain way like Parmesan cheese, champagne, Kobe beef, stuff like that. It has that carrying brand name, but those names are specifically have certain standards and regulations and are only come from like certain specific regions. But because of and it's mostly a blasting the US's lackadaisical, marketing laws and stuff is that people can label anything that they want, and the places where they come from because they're international can't say anything about it because they don't have any say for U.S. laws. And so just going over all the things that like you will see every day, like how Parmesan cheese can only really come from Parma in Italy, and how a
Hmm.
lot of Parmesan cheese, like the stuff you buy at the store, they found, and a lot of these have like laboratory testing and genetic testing, and the information is crazy. But like the Parmesan cheese, a lot of those found like sawdust in Parmesan cheese
Oh
that you
my
get.
gosh.
Yeah, stuff like that. And like Kobe beef, you hear about people eating Kobe all over the place, but according to the author, like the town or wherever Kobe comes from, there are only three licensed restaurants in all of US that can actually sell authentic Kobe beef. And how many places have you seen list Kobe or something similar on it? So
Hmm.
like things like that are very very eye opening and crazy. And then there's this whole crazy section about seafood and how like people you can't tell what one seafood is another besides salmon. Like you look at a piece of fish and it's like, okay, I can't tell what the heck that is, and
Yeah.
marketers take huge advantage of that, and that's when they did a lot of DNA testing to where like you'll go to sushi restaurants or grocery stores and be like, this is marketed as bass, but we're going to genetic test it, and nope, there is not any bass in that fish that you just sold me, sort of thing. So for a while it becomes like, well, holy crap, I'm just eating all kinds of bad stuff, and they sort of pour it on you. But usually at the end of the section or certain parts of the section, they'll tell you if you want a cheese or a cheese like this, or if you want this kind of fish, then these are some of the stores that actually do really well. And at these stores, there are seals. Like some places have seals. They said, I remember they said Costco, even Walmart, and like Whole Foods are some of the best places to go to because they have their own really, and I think Trader Joe's, they have their own really, really good policing for
Hmm.
standards, and like actually do like third party testing on the standards of like some of their seafoods and beefs and stuff. So they'll actually have to look for certain seals in on your food in the store to make sure it is what it says it is, and not just sort of marketing slapped on your thing. So I need to look at to see if there's some sort of PDF, because we're in Spain right now, so I actually don't have to deal with most of this stuff. Once you get back to the States, I'm definitely going to want to have that handy to see like, okay, what do I really need to be buying when it comes to seafood? Where do I need to go to get my seafood, my beef? We don't really do cheese. I actually skipped like the entire chapter on champagne because I just didn't care because I don't drink
Yeah.
champagne. But a lot of that stuff, I think it was really, really informative, really interesting. Um, I've always known, like, if for people who would want to read it, if you've already gotten into sort of the nutrition space and some of the regulations somewhat interest you, I've been interested in the past for some of the books that we've read where they go over just like what is actually allowed, because it's very eye opening to get behind the scenes of marketing and to kind of look past it. So if that interests you, I thought that was really really neat, and the lack of restrictions that the U.S. has. It wasn't until was it last year or year that they now ban red dye,
I feel like
the
that was
whatever the red
recent.
dye
Yeah.
was. Yeah, like super recent, but it's been banned so many other places. And I only
Multiple
just
years.
recently
Yeah.
realized and heard like from people that I actually know who, um, oh, you told me about this story too, about kids who have red dye and go absolutely batshit crazy because red dye was their food. I
Yeah.
didn't know that was a thing because
Yeah.
none
Our
of my
middle
siblings had
Graham,
it.
he was like that, and we just learned it. I mean, Emily's pretty in tune with all of those things, but yeah, we just made the connection after a couple of birthday party instances or whatever, and so yeah, we don't touch any kind of food coloring with anything now.
Yeah. So this book is good for taking more of health and everything into your own hands, because you pretty much have to, especially if you're in the US. You need to like do your own due diligence and go the extra steps to protect yourself, your family, and your health. And a book like this really helps to like, okay, I know why, and now I need to know which things to get, and then you can kind of go move forward from there. And a lot of times with food and stuff, it could be information overload going through some of these
Yeah.
books. I've probably read 10, 12 so nutrition books, and usually, while I don't remember a lot of them, because a couple years down the road, there's some things that I'll eat, and I'm like, yeah, I eat this way. I want to do it eating this way, but I won't do it that way. And people are like, oh, why? I'm like, honestly, I forget, but I know there's a good reason, and I know I read about it, and this is just how I'm doing it now, because I can't remember all of that scientific reasoning behind it, but I know this is the best way to do it. So that's what I'm going to do, because that's what science and research and books have told me.
Yeah, and that's the problem with some of those books is like it can be really overwhelming for somebody who's just trying to make better decisions. So if you're kind of in that boat, like there are two things that come up. It's either overwhelm. It's like, okay, this is a lot, and so instead of doing something, you do nothing. If you feel like you're in that boat, just try to pick one small thing. Like, okay, I am going to focus on meat quality or vegetable quality or whatever it is. And then the second thing that could happen, which I basically have the same advice for, is budgetary. It's like, okay, yeah, I want to buy all the foods that you're talking about. I want them to be good, sourced from Italy, best meat, whatever. And then it's like, well, my grocery bill just doubled and I can't afford that. I hear that feedback as well. Again, you have to go back to what's important, what's most important for you. Like a big one is like, this has nothing to do with food, but like filtering your water. Make sure that you're drinking filtered water. Spend whatever it costs there, because if you're drinking Like I basically only drink water and I have some coffee, like, and that comes from the water at my house. So like making sure that's really filtered is very important to me. And I think I consume more of that than anything else in a day. So like I'm like, okay, that's worth my financial resources, time, and attention. So boom, let's get a water filter for the water. And then it's like, okay, now we can move on to meat or whatever. That's what I've been focusing on lately is meat. And here's the deal: I don't trust anybody when it comes to
Mhm.
food, nutrition, or supplements. There's not a single company, and that's why I don't ever really talk about a supplement company on here or like a very specific food brand, because even the ones I eat or the supplements I consume, I do not trust them. I don't trust them. I have maybe decided, like, okay, I'm going to take these supplements from this company because it seems good enough right now. But I know we're only like one lawsuit away from finding out that it's not. You know what I mean? Like whether that's Athletic Greens or insert popular influencer, supplement company here. It's like, oh, we found these bad things in your supplement or like whatever. Like, and same with foods. And it generally happens when these companies want to scale and they don't scale very well. They start outsourcing things like this has nothing to do with food, but like it just happens over time. Like Go Ruck's big thing was like we make American made backpacks and they're awesome. And like, we're veteran founded, all that kind of stuff. I'm like, cool. So I bought some of their backpacks and then they started to scale and they're like, actually, we're gonna have to start building some of these backpacks in Vietnam. And I'm like, that whole premise and like how they got started, was American made, quality, all this kind of stuff. And then they're like, oh, well, actually, the quality is just as good in Vietnam. And I'm like, doesn't it just kind of like take a crap on the whole like American made quality idea if you're just saying it's just as good over in Vietnam? So
Mhm.
anyway, I'm not like trying to give GoRuck a hard time. I'm just saying this is what happens when companies try to scale their company and they can't stay within the parameters that got them to where they were because they either have to decide to stay small because everything costs are too high. And I think that happens with all of these food companies and supplement companies. I think supplement companies even outgrow quality. They're like, oh, they might start really awesome quality based company. And then when they try to scale, that's when I start getting nervous. When I hear someone like they're double, tripling their supplement company, I'm like, I'm not 100% sure I want to keep using your supplements when I hear that information because you just don't know what corners they're having to cut, if any, to be able to do that. So anyway, that's my little rant on just like food and supplements is like do your research, pick small areas to improve. Don't try and do everything all at once and trust no one.
Yeah, and so many companies will get bought up by somebody, and they're like, we don't want to scale, so we're just going to sell this to somebody else, and
And
then
you
that
might
person
not
has
even know they were
control.
purchased, right?
Yeah.
Like you will like unless you're like really in tune with those things, you'll never know that the company was bought. Like Coca-Cola bought Topo Chico. Not that that was like a big health move, but it was like Topo Chico used to be like this like not locally owned, but like family owned or something like that. And then like in the dead of night, Coca-Cola came and bought Topo Chico, right? And so not that again, that's not a health thing. It's just like you don't hear about these things like
Mhm.
often. Like these things happen all the time. They don't make big announcements for it. It just becomes a part of the brand. And then they're the first thing they're going to do is try and increase profit. And how they
Mhm.
do that, sometimes you don't want to know.
Yeah, taking shortcuts. So
Yeah.
it's very interesting. I would if I wouldn't say it should be the first nutrition book you read, but I think it's worth listen. And like the audiobook was only 8 or 9 hours, so if you listen to any accelerated rate, it'll go by pretty quick. And there's also more takeaways and like going back to cheese. Like people want the Italian or whatever cheese, but like in the US, you could just find comparable, similar cheeses that are more local. And they go over a few that are like, there's certain cheeses in parts of the US that they're coined specifically in the US, just like it is in, Parma, Italy, and those places where they're coined after the name. And they have those in the US. They're just not as widely known. So just finding those sort of products that are a bit more local or aren't they're not coming in from overseas anyway, or can be doctored or just go off of that big brand catchy name that you know.
Well, that's awesome. Sounds like definitely a worthy book for the listeners out there. But we can wrap this one up. Project Delta is coming, just weeks away.
That's the new
We
Hard to
are,
Kill cycle for those wondering. That's the new programming for
yeah.
Hard to Kill.
So it'll be on the Hard to Kill track. It'll be the next cycle when we get started with Project Delta. We have been getting questions about that. Probably do a little bit more information in an upcoming podcast on that just to answer any questions that come up about Project Delta. But I'm really excited about it, really psyched up to jump into that. So that's what's coming for all Garage Gym athletes out there. If you're not one of our Garage Gym athletes, go to garagegymathlete.com, sign up for a free trial, and we would love to have you there. But that's it for this one. Remember, if you don't kill comfort, comfort will kill you.